Hello all. Today we will look at the state of Haryana in North India and its journey from NFHS 4 to NFHS 5. Haryana has economically prospered. All of us know the story, but it has also reduced the levels of child malnutrition between these two rounds quite substantially. It has not performed very well, however, when it comes to child mortality. We will see that. We are looking at three components: the neonatal mortality, the infant mortality, and the under 5 mortality. Nor have the anemia levels shown a decline. In fact, the anemia levels in the NFHS 4 round were fairly high. Yet, some of Haryana's districts actually can aspire to become malnutrition free or Kuposhan Mukt. When we say this, we are looking at essentially wasting and underweight, because stunting, getting rid of stunting is usually a longer haul. So it is important, therefore, to map this journey district-wise. That will emphasize once again the need for a district-specific or region-specific planning. While doing this analysis, we have used this site nfhs4.indiagis.org and nfhs5.indiagis.org. Any of the viewers can use this site and see some of this analysis or do this analysis for themselves. Let's see how has the story unfolded for underweight. You could see a very sharp improvement, and it's across the state. But in Haryana, Mewat remains the weak spot, and that comes out here as well. So you notice that there is a considerable decline. And what is interesting is that this data range of underweight children under 5 has shrunk quite considerably from 20.5% children being underweight, which was the lower bound in the NFHS 4 round. That has come down to 9.7. Now that's quite significant. The upper bound has come down rather slowly from 40.8 to 37.3. But that is because of the high burden one district or so. And what we have again done, we have looked at the cutoffs of NFHS 4 and used them for NFHS 5. So it is not Haryana comparing itself with any other state or with all India level, but it is Haryana vis-a-vis Haryana itself between NFHS 4 and NFHS 5. It's important to emphasize this point. If we look at underweight, again we notice fairly strong improvement across the state. Once again, Mewat remains an exception. This is something which the state needs to look at more seriously. And again, we will notice that the data range has come down quite significantly. It's not very sharp, but in stunting, a reduction of this data range is not an easy task. But you would notice that it has come down from 19.8 in the lower bound to 15.6, which is quite critical. The best foot forward actually comes in wasting. You will see a very sharp reduction in the data range. From 13.6 lower bound comes down to just 6% of the children wasted. Even the upper bound from 37.9, it comes down to 20.7, and here Mewat seems to have done fine. This slide is slightly unusual in the sense that we have compared Haryana NFHS 5 with NFHS 4 cutoffs, and even then you see considerable gains. We went a step further and used the cutoffs that were used for Kerala, NFHS 5. And even then, Haryana fares well with Kerala cutoff. Now that is significant. We again look at severe wasting, and surprisingly, there are considerable gains across the state. Now, considerable gains both in wasting and severe wasting tell a story because sometimes the two diverge. The data range again reduces considerably. You can look at it, 4.5% children being severely wasted. That was the lower bound in NFHS 4. You now see it coming down to something like 1.6, which is quite credible. The upper bound moves from 18.4% children being severely wasted, which is rather large. State 50% reduction, 9.5% at the upper bound. So this is something where one sees that Haryana has put up a good performance in all the three aspects of malnutrition: stunting, wasting, underweight, and severe wasting. We did another interesting exercise. We looked at few best performing districts of Haryana, and we have taken the four top one in terms of underweight, that is Jhajjar, Sonipat, Ambala, and Mahendragarh. Of them, we took the 2019 projected under 5 population using based on the census 2011 data, and we worked out approximately what would be the number of children who would be malnourished or undernourished, I would say. And the numbers are there for everyone to see. But what is interesting is that if a district is told that there are just about 3,000 children who are severely wasted, or in case of Mahendragarh, it is just 1,700 or so, because of the small size of the district, quite often the district feels, hey, this is within our reach. We can try to reduce it quite drastically. So we looked at Jhajjar and the burden of malnutrition in absolute terms, in terms of number of children. The same data, same analysis can be done for other districts. But there's something additional which we looked at. How does this district of Haryana compare with the WHO reference? This is a slightly technical matter, but it will suffice to tell that when we take a large number of children, or we take any variable which is fairly large, one typically gets a bell-shaped curve. And here you would notice that there is a green bell-shaped curve, which is the WHO reference population curve for nutritional status, is there for underweight, is there for wasting, and it is there for stunting. The Jhajjar curve, the Jhajjar distribution, one could say, which is in the red bell-shaped curve, is just towards the left of this green curve. And when we talk in terms of a malnutrition-free district, I think the first port of call is for this left-hand side red curve to move rightwards and at least match it on the on the negative side of the axis. Here you see these numbers 1, 2, 3. They represent standard deviation as a unit. One doesn't have to worry very much about it, except for noticing that in the WHO reference curve, anything below -3 is 0. So therefore we have actually put these arrow marks, which shows you the small area which is there below -3 standard deviations. And the first attempt any state or any district should make is to bring this number down to 0. And if you look at the Jhajjar figures, I think this is doable. It won't go to absolute 0, but it will come fairly close to 0. A similar analysis can be done for any other district. These standard curves can be drawn using using standard available public domain software, but we will not bother the viewer with those details. Suffices it to say that Haryana can look at the possibility of some of its districts actually becoming Kuposhan Mukt in terms of wasting and underweight. Stunting, as I said, is a longer haul. But when we go to child mortality, this becomes a bit of an area of concern for Haryana. Now, if you look at the mortality figures, They are fairly high even at the NFHS 4 level. The decline has not been there. In fact, infant mortality levels have marginally gone up. And the concern is that even in urban Haryana, one doesn't see much improvement. Now, that is something which is for the state to worry about. The state seems to be in that regime or in that region where reducing under 5 mortality is the first step. Usually what happens is state brings down the under 5 mortality quite significantly, then the IMR goes down significantly, and then the neonatal mortality reduces. So Haryana seems to be still in that uh, domain of reducing under 5 mortality. This is one area of concern. When we come to anemia, we have commented on this issue of anemia levels being in NFHS 4, the anemia levels showing a implausible picture. But in the case of Haryana, in NFHS 4 stage itself, the anemia levels were pretty high. But even then, if we look at the levels in NFHS 4 and NFHS 5, the range has slightly narrowed down in NFHS 5, but the figures of anemia don't inspire much confidence. We have the same story when it comes to women in the 15 to 19-year age group, high levels of anemia at the NFHS 4 stage itself. The range of percentage anemic women hasn't also come down. So Haryana needs to, while raising questions related to the NFHS 4 anemia figures, has to recognize that there is an issue related to anemia among the women. So child mortality and anemia need some detailed scrutiny and steps. So how has the story for Haryana unfolded overall? It has shown substantial gains in the nutritional status of its children. The child mortality and anemia present a worrisome picture. Worrisome picture is what I emphasize. But it has districts which are very close to the goalpost of being free from undernutrition, at least in terms of wasting and underweight. Particular case of Jhajjar we have illustrated. So one question is, mischievous question perhaps, can Haryana beat Kerala in achieving a Kuposhan Mukt district, at least in the realm of wasting and underweight? So do what Kerala did in the case of total literacy campaign. We leave this thought with the viewers and then we move to another state. Thank you very much.